This is my review of Jojo's Bizarre Adventure. Okay, so it's the second half of Stardust Crusaders, and we're immediately introduced to a new ally. So, it's explained by Joseph and Abdul who the ally actually is, but we don't see him until a few minutes in. So, Joseph actually explains that they're waiting for a new ally to show up that'll be able to help them. And Abdul is immediately skeptical, pointing out that he's not exactly the most trustworthy of allies, and has a bit of a behavioral issue. And case in point, Abdul begins to explain that it's very lucky that he's not their enemy, because he possesses the stand the Fool, who we see a few minutes later, but it's established that even Polnareff couldn't beat him, and that sets Polnareff off a little bit. So naturally, when the helicopter lands and the two pilots explain that they brought their new stand user buddy in, Polnareff immediately goes to confront this new stand user, but they can't find him anywhere in the helicopter, but even though it's explained several times by the pilots that he's actually sitting in the back seat. So Polnareff goes to confront this new stand user, but is thrown for a loop when a dog named Iggy hops out of the back seat and it starts ripping his hairs out. And at which point it's explained that he's actually a very unruly dog that Abdul found in New York, and establishes that even the dog catchers couldn't catch him. So they've already got a pretty unruly, uncooperative dog just sitting in the back seat and expecting him to help. But this also establishes what Iggy's stand can actually do. So Polnareff, in the middle of getting his hair ripped out, actually manages to throw Iggy free of his face and summons Silver Chariot to try and cut him down, to mainly be out of self-defense because he kind of upset the dog and he knows the dog is going to attack him. But then Iggy sends out the Fool, and it's immediately established why Polnareff is unable to beat him, because the Fool, it's formless, for lack of a better word. It's not inherently a powerful stand in a technical sense, but the way it works is that it basically manifests itself out of sand, pulls itself all together, and that's what creates the Fool. So it quickly establishes that the Fool is made out of sand, and that Abdul was right when he said that Polnareff wouldn't be able to beat him. And case in point, Polnareff goes right back to getting his hair ripped out by the dog. And while Polnareff is dealing with Iggy, the rest of Joestar Group have the Speedwagon Foundation pull out the rest of the items that they need to go on their trip. And while they're unloading, the pilot actually explains that Dio assembled some helpers. That's mainly it. That's why they sent Iggy into Egypt after them, because Dio has assembled 9 other stand users to help him out. And with Iggy, that only leaves the Fool as the one last tarot card stand, which means that apparently there are other stand users and the world could be any one of them. So now that begs the question of, does Dio has the world as a stand or not? It firmly establishes that it might not be the case, because there are 9 other stand users now that they have to worry about, but at the same time, it might be, it might not be. That's the surprise of the season. It could be the world, it could not. But yeah, with everybody out of the way and with everybody now situated and everything out of the way, the Speedwagon Foundation says their goodbyes and gets back into the helicopter and leaves. And it firmly establishes that Iggy just doesn't really care. It establishes that he just kind of does his own thing and doesn't really care about if the humans in his party get hurt or not. So yeah, he winds up having the middle seat all to himself, mainly because he's chowing down on some gum, which he likes. His favorite flavor, actually. Coffee, was it? I think it was coffee. He likes coffee-flavored gum. It establishes that. And Polnareff is kind of annoyed because they all have to sit in the back while Iggy takes up the whole middle seat to himself. But then they stop suddenly when they discover that the Speedwagon Foundation helicopter that they saw leave actually wound up crashing. and they go to investigate the scene after and are a bit surprised by what they find. They found that one guy actually started digging his hands into the side of the plane and started clawing at it, and that he somehow managed to drown in the desert, complete with a fish. And then they find that the other guy is still alive, and then they believe he's asking for water, but then they realize too late that he was actually warning them about what the stand was, and that the stand was actually living inside the canteen. And then it rips the pilot's head off, and then they scurry away, trying to get a read on what the new enemy is. But they don't really have one. The only person who knows is Iggy, who it firmly establishes early in the episode they knows who the stand user is, a stand user named Nadul, who controls his stands named Geb. It's never stated in the episode what the stand actually is, but it's named Geb, which is kind of cool because it's named after an Egyptian god, and they're in Egypt, so it makes sense. But the way it works is completely different from the Earth god, goddess, whatever. They're both sometimes, but yeah, firmly she establishes that it's not the same as the Egyptian Earth god, and it's in fact made of water, and can in fact seeps through the ground and attacks Kakyoin while he's trying to read the situation. And it also quickly establishes that the stand can't actually see because its stand user can't see, which is established earlier in the episode. But it establishes that he can in fact not see, so therefore his stand acts mainly on sound, and that's the only way I can see. And quickly realizing that out, they retreat to the car and climb on top of it, realizing that the stand won't be able to hear them if they're on top of it. And then Nadul quickly figures that out and starts capsizing the car by making the sand underneath the car in a quicksand using his stand, and it causes the entire car to capsize. Iggy quickly figures this out and climbs out of the car, which is now capsizing, and then goes immediately to sleep. And Nadul realizes that he may or may not be a threat because on the one hand the dog can accurately predict his movements, but on the other hand the dog doesn't care. So yeah, Iggy is established to just not care. He's established to just not really care about any of what's going on. And why would he? I mean, this whole thing has nothing to do with him. He's just a dog. He wants to do dog things. He doesn't care about the whole vampire, fate of the world type stuff. He doesn't care about any of that. He's just a dog. He wants to do dog things, and he doesn't really care who gets in the way and who doesn't. So yeah, Iggy is a bit of a problem child, and I'm assuming the group is going to sort that out very quickly, or we're going to be spending the rest of the season just dealing with this temperamental dog who does not care. So yeah. But yeah, it's interesting to note that this stand user is completely blind, and therefore his stand is completely blind. It's interesting that Nadul and Geb kind of work similarly. So it seems like this stands. So it's been established now that there is, in fact, 9 other stand users that Dio has employed. It's entirely possible that the world is possessed by one of them, possibly Dio himself, but it says otherwise, so maybe that's to just throw off the fact that Dio's stand is in fact the world, and that these 9 new stand users are completely different from the tarot card set of stands. But yeah, this is going to be an interesting season because it firmly establishes that there are in fact new stand users, all named after Egyptian gods and goddesses. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But yeah, it also establishes that Iggy just doesn't care, as I said. Iggy is probably one of the more powerful stand users in the series, but he's also one of the more temperamental because he doesn't care and is just a dog, and he wants to do dog things. So yeah, we'll see how well of an ally he plays into the story. We'll see how much of an ally he is, but for right now, I think I'm gonna leave this episode here. So if you did indeed see this episode of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, what did you guys think? Let the discussion go in the comment section down below, or over on my Discord server, link in the description. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also be sure to follow me on Facebook and on Twitter in the description below. And also check out my Patreon in the description below as well. It's only a couple bucks a month, and it really helps me out, so I would definitely appreciate it if you did that. Help support me, and I will help support you guys. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace!